Okay, now I'm rolling.
Okay, Nick, we're rolling now, recording. And first thing I'd like for you to do is tell me your name, your date of birth, and your place of birth.
My name is Nick B. Herrera, and my date of birth is March the 31st, 1925, and I was born in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, and Nick, tell me that you're a veteran of the South Pacific.
I am a veteran of a World War II veteran of the Pacific. I was in the New Guinea invasion of Hollandia, also in the invasion of Leyte and Subic Bay in southern Luzon.
Okay, now you're a Mexican and you encountered some prejudice when you were in the Army. Would you tell me about that?
Yes, sir. In those years, there was quite a bit of discrimination against the Mexicans, and we were either known as Mexicans, the race was Mexicans, and a lot of them thought that I was an Italian or French, and they would talk to me about the Mexicans, and I would just listen to them, and when they would finish talking, I would ask them, well, what do you think? If I tell you that one of those Mexicans that you were talking about, I'm one of them. And they would laugh and say, no, I don't think you are one of them. Why? In the first place, they say, you don't act like one of them, and another, in the second place, you look like an Italian or a Frenchman. And I tell them, well, it's not so. I'm proud to be a Mexican and American, and I was born in the United States. Because a lot of they were friends of mine, they used to tell me, after this war is over, would you take us to Mexico and show us around? I said, how am I going to show you around when I don't even know the language? I speak Tex-Mex, as is about 100% different than the way they speak over there. And they said, well, I thought you were born in Mexico. I said, no, sir. I was born in the United States.
What, can you share with us some of the things they would say, the racial comments that they would make?
Well, some of them, they would say that the Mexicans were very jealous with one another, and that was one of the races that they didn't. Let me see. Well, that they were very greedy with one another, because they would give a raise. For instance, they would give a raise to one of them, a nickel raise, and they would come running and saying, hey, I'm better than he is, and how come I don't get a raise? And things like that they used to talk about, you know.
Tell me about the fighting that you experienced in New Guinea at Hollandia.
Okay, in Hollandia, when we boarded the LST, we were about 45 miles, square mile convoy. We landed in Hollandia, and we landed in Red Beach, and it was very rough in there at the beginning, and the very first day that we were there, we landed around about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and about 6 or 7, they told us to dig in, and about 6 or 7 they started strafing and bombing us. And they had the Imperial Marines were in there. That was a real rough place. And there was a place called Pancake Hill. And the Japanese had stored all their ammunition there, big stockpile of ammunition. And when we landed, they took off and left it there. And when we unloaded the LSTs, we unloaded the ammunition right next to their ammunition dump. And about 6 o'clock that afternoon, they came and bombed their ammunition bomb storage. And for days it went off, all night, and for days, 2 or 3 days it went off. All that ammunition just blew up. And there was quite a bit of people in that area. They were killed in that time.
Was that the worst thing you saw, or did you see things that were worse that happened to individual soldiers?
Well, like I said earlier, in the Philippines, we were bombed and strafed for about 13 days, day and night, because we didn't have air support. The aircraft carriers had no place to land, and they ran out of gas, and they were landing, and some of them were getting racked up and all that. So we didn't have no air support for about 13 days. And we had quite a bit of from the company that got killed on that. Yeah. And 13 days later, I remember very vividly that Major Bongs, I learned out later that he was the leader or the commander of the P-38s that came in. And that was the most joyful thing we ever seen. Everybody was cheering them because at least we had some support then. And this is why I always had great respect for the Air Force.
At the time that you were involved in Hollandia and then later Leyte and Subic Bay, did you realize the strategy of island hopping, what you were doing at the time?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that. What was that like, to not know where you were going or?
Well, we never got told where we were going. They just boarded us aboard ship, and we knew we were heading someplace, but we didn't know where. And I remember it was around April when we boarded the LST heading for Subic Bay. And I remember real good because they announced that time, that Franklin Roosevelt, our president, had passed away. And this is the reason I remember. It was in April 1944. And when a big convoy, we had air support, we had all the ships. When we landed in Subic Bay, there was no shots fired or anything. And we went in with the 38th Division in there. It was a new, well, not a new outfit, but they were fresh from Hawaii. That's what I heard, that they were fresh from Hawaii. And that was their first experience. And they taught us how to handle the guns in the aboard ship, just in case it would, we would have to man those guns ourselves. And some of them, they would say, no, I'm not going to do anything like that because, well, they were inexperienced. And anyway, when we went in, there was no shots fired, but then about 3 or 4 days later is when it started, down the line, they started, and it got real rough,
How rough did it get?
Well, it was in Subic Bay, it got real bad, that the Japanese were dug in caves where they were very hard to get out of there. And they were killing a lot of soldiers.
Whenever you got the announcement that Roosevelt had died, excuse me, how did the men react to the death of Roosevelt? Did they cry?
Well, some of them were very sad about it, yes.
You have to start that when we heard that Roosevelt died. Begin by saying when we heard that Roosevelt died.
When we heard that our President Roosevelt had died, most of the soldiers were very sad about it. Some even cried, yes. Because we lost a very good president there. He never got to see the end of this war, which he always said that we would fight him till the end,
Tell me about the jungle fighting in New Guinea when you were in Hollandia. Just tell me what it sounded like, what it smelled like, what it felt like. How hot was it?
Well, when we went into New Guinea, the first time that we went into New Guinea, there was, we had to walk with our machetes in our hands, making trails to get in there. And the mosquitoes were real bad. They were real bad. I caught malaria and almost died of malaria. The mosquitoes, that's how bad they were in there. And it got real hot, and there was a lot of snakes and stuff, insects, that it was unbearable, And the heat was another factor that we had against us. It got over 100 degrees. But after a while, you get used to that,
What was it like fighting in that kind of oppressive heat and snakes and mosquitoes and then trying to kill an enemy? What was it like for you?
What?
What was it like to be in that kind of heat with mosquitoes and snakes and still trying to fight a battle?
Oh, it was kind of rough trying to battle all those elements, and especially when we started laying those pipelines through the swamps of New Guinea, and those pipelines, each pipeline weighed about 30 pounds, and they were 20 feet long, 4 inches in diameter, and we had to go through there to lay those pipes and then couple those together, string them for miles and miles towards the beach to where they would contact the barge, so they could pump the gasoline into the jungles to provide for the mechanized vehicles. And we also used to have about every 5 miles we used to put one of those gate valves. And in case of a sabotage, because the Japanese would infiltrate and they would sabotage the pipeline. And we had 80 octane gasoline in those lines. It was a pretty dangerous job, And when they did that, then we had to go search where they would sabotage and replace those pipelines so they could continue, and they would shut off the gates in between, you know. And those gate valves, they were pretty heavy. It took about three soldiers to carry it. And that's when I got injured also. There was three of us carrying one of those gate valves. And two of the men went down in a swamp, and I stood on solid ground. And my back snapped. So they had to carry me to an evacuation hospital from there. And I spent about two months laid in a hospital. And then a major came over and he told me, "How you feeling?" I said, "Well, I'm not feeling too good. I'm hurting." And he said, "Well, I think you're just homesick. You want to go home." I said, "No, sir." I said, "I'm hurting. But if you want me to go back to the line, I'll be glad to go back to the line." And I did. He sent me right there, back to the line.
You participated in Leyte, and that was the fulfillment of MacArthur's promise, "I shall return." Did you think of anything about that while you were going ashore at Leyte, or were you more concerned about how you were going to survive the landing?
Well, when we landed, they were taking pictures.
When we landed at Leyte.
When we landed in Leyte,
Okay, and now start.
when we landed in Leyte, they were taking pictures of MacArthur. And some GI shouted, "You just ruined a very good picture," because we were in front of him, you know. And when MacArthur made that statement, "I have returned," the rest of the GIs, they were saying, "Yes, we just came for the ride."
What was the moment you were most scared?
Well, let me tell you, when I was over there, things happened so fast that it didn't give you a chance to get scared. I would shake afterwards and think about it, after I thought about it. But things...
Hold on 1 second. Wait 1 second.
Tom will,
Yeah, Mr. Pick,
yes.
come in.
Oh, okay.
Come in. We're running a little bit late.
Okay, I'll please, come over and sit down. All right.
Just make yourself comfortable.
You might want to start that question.
Yeah. Okay, we'll start over again on that question.
Okay.
What was the most frightening moment for you?
Well, the most frightening moment, I can't remember offhand, because everything that happened so fast that it didn't give you a chance to get scared. At least I never got scared until afterwards. When I had chance to think about it, that's when I got scared. But when it happened, when it was happening, that we got strafed, bombed, and shot at, I was not scared, because you were busy thinking about something else, you know, trying to survive. And this is the reason that I can't say that when was my the scariest moment I had, but we were all scared. There's nobody that says that he wasn't scared, because he'd be lying if he say that he wasn't scared.
Did you pray?
I prayed every night and every day. When things got real hard, yes, sir. I prayed. That's when I learned to pray, and I really thank the good Lord for bringing me back and surviving. Yes, sir.
When the war was over, how did you feel?
I was very, very happy when the war was over. I was very happy. And I thank the good Lord that the Japanese surrendered, because when the war was over, we had our orders read. They already had orders for us. We were going to go into Japan, and our orders were to demolish an air base. I can't remember the base right now, but we were going to go in attached to the 4th Marine Division. And that's when we learned that we were going to Japan, to invade Japan. And I thank the good Lord that we didn't have to go because of the 2 atomic bombs that they dropped. And I was one of the first ground troops to land in Japan, Army Occupation Forces. And we landed in Japan. We were out on the shore, on the Tokyo Bay, to be exact, in Tokyo Bay. We were out there for about a week, aboard ship, while the minesweepers swept the bay so that we could land. And all this time we were all thinking the same thing. We would have never survived if we would have had to land there in Japan. So this is why we thank the good Lord that it was over. A lot of people that don't know say that the United States was wrong in using the atomic bomb. I say they're wrong because they don't know what they're talking about. Because they were prepared for us. If we would have landed there, they were prepared for us. There was been a lot of lives lost. Yes, sir.
Bob, you have 23 minutes.
Okay, we only have a couple of minutes. Can you tell me what it was like when you returned home? Were you married?
I was not married.
You were home to your mom and dad?
Just my mom. My dad was a World War I veteran. He served in the 36th Infantry Division, and he died at a very young age of 46 years old, because they used gas in World War I.
What was it like when you got home and saw your mother for the first time? Can you tell me that story?
Well, it was, I was very, very happy. And my mother aged a lot while I was gone.
That's fine.
Did you feel that you had done something were you proud of your Hispanic background when you came back, and do you feel that you had contributed something special?
Were you proud of the Mexican, the Spanish contribution to the war?
I was very proud, and I still am.
Can you say I was very proud of the Mexican contribution?
Or Hispanic?
Or Hispanic?
I was very proud of the Hispanic race, that we were able to serve America and defend America.
Are you proud today?
I am very proud, and I will always be very proud. Yes, sir.
Do you know about the World War II Memorial?
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us what you think of the World War II Memorial?
Well, the first thing that I can say about the World War II Memorial is that they have taken a long time to recognize the World War II veterans, because some of us we're getting older every day, and we're not getting any younger, and we're losing too many World War II veterans, and they will never get to see that. And of course, when we first came back, we were not the type that were upset or mad because didn't have no parades or recognized in no other way or anything. And we always took it in stride as something that we had to do for our country. But I have contributed for that memorial, and I look forward to seeing that memorial. And I wish I could do more to have that memorial real soon, because like I say, we're all up in age. World War II is all up in age, and God knows if we'll ever get to see it.
What would you like people to remember about World War II? If you could talk to future generations, what would you like them to remember?
Well, what I would like for them to remember is...
What I would like for future generations.
What I would like for the future generation is that our country, America, is one of the greatest countries in the world. And freedom doesn't come free. And there's a big price that you have to pay. Some paid dearly with their lives. And when we came back, we felt that the United States of America doesn't owe us anything, because we enjoy the freedoms that we have, and we will continue enjoying the freedoms that we have if we all do our part when the time comes. And this is what I would advise the future generation to think about, that if they have to defend our country, they shouldn't have no problem with that.
You told me a little story about watching Kamikazes. Could you tell me that story?
Yes, sir. When we were heading for the invasion of Leyte, our convoy, for the first time in my life, I met the Kamikaze pilots, and I didn't believe it, what I was seeing, that they would come straight at the air ships, and they crash in there, and they would start shooting them down, and they still kept coming. And the morning before we landed, there was quite a few of those knocked down by the Navy pilots. Those Navy pilots are quite good fighters, very good. And we stood aboard ship on the decks, and we like cheerleaders. Every time one of them would go down, we all cheered. And that's about all we could do, and just watch them, which I wish I would have had a movie camera at the time. But in those days, they didn't allow you to have cameras. They didn't allow you to write whatever you felt or take notes or anything like that. And this is why most of World War II veterans have problems remembering dates, because we didn't write things down. They wouldn't allow us. They would censor our letters. They would censor sometimes the lieutenant would come over and tell me, here's your letter, Nick. Don't write so much because there's nothing left in your letters. And he would return them to me. So I got the message that there was no sense of me wasting time writing what was happening and what I was doing or where I was. But they were very, very strict with that. Pictures, we couldn't take no pictures.
All right. think we're about out of tape, and that was great. That was great, Ed. Thanks.
Great.